Hi everyone, welcome back to Astro in Focus. Today we're going to talk about 10 quick tips to help you prepare for a total solar eclipse. Let's dive in. So the first tip, and probably the most important, is going to be safety. Unless you're in the path of totality, and only during that short window of totality when the sun is fully covered by the moon, is the only time that you can safely look directly at the sun without any protective equipment. So many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the cardboard solar viewing glasses. These are great, reasonably priced, and will allow you to look at the partial phases leading up to and after totality. Another option is going to be a solar finder that you'll just hold up, has a larger window, but it still allows you to safely look at the sun. Now for something a little bit more durable for those eclipse chasers, you may opt for a more of a traditional sunglass style plastic framed eclipse glasses. Now just like the cardboard viewer and glasses, these do have the solar film on the front, but they're more durable. It will last several eclipses. And they're also going to allow you to safely look at the sun, just like the other two glass viewers. Now for a quick portable grab and go, we have solar safe binoculars. Now these are manufactured by Lunt. They are reasonably priced, very portable. If you are traveling on a plane, you can stow these away in one of your bags. One of the things that I really like about these is the solar film is behind a clear lens to protect it. There's no way for this to come apart, accidentally get damaged. Even if this front clear plastic were to get scratched, they'll still be safe. But just like all of these items, before you put them to use and look at the sun, you'll want to hold them up to a bright white light and look through and make sure that there's no pinholes through them. If there is any film type, such as these glasses or viewers, unfortunately they're no longer safe for use. Now with the Eclipse binoculars, it can be a little tricky to find the sun because when you're looking through, it is a completely black field of view until you're on the sun. Now even with these small binoculars, you can still see sunspots. Today I can count two or three that I can see with these. Now Lunt and Celestron do make a larger pair. They are pricier. I have had a chance to use the Celestron. Instead of your familiar yellowish tint to the surface of the sun, you get a silvery blue, and they will have a larger view of the sun and allow you to see sunspots a little bit easier. Now something that anybody can make is get a piece of cardstock and get a hole punch. You can make a pinhole projection. So what you'll do is you'll line this up with the sun and a flat surface. Once you see a smooth shadow, you know that you're in focus, and you'll be able to see the crescent phase as the moon passes over the sun up towards totality. So now that we have protective gear for you, what about for your telescope or your camera? Well, there's a couple different options that you can choose. They do make solar film, just like the same film that's in these glasses and viewers, that you can buy already made for the diameter of the front aperture of your telescope. Or there's also these glass filters. Now the glass ones, while you'd think they're more durable, the film coating on this glass is very delicate. The advantage of that, however, is with following the manufacturer's recommendations, they can be repaired. With instance of this solar filter, the manufacturer recommends a black Sharpie. If there is any pinhole, you can just put a dot of a black Sharpie, put it on the front of your telescope, and it'll be still safe for viewing or imaging. Now, something that I wouldn't recommend necessarily for a total eclipse because of the time it would take to transition between a partial phase and switching over all your gear to totality, you can get something like a Daystar Quark. Now this is going to allow you to not look at the photosphere, but the chromosphere. That's going to be the layer of the sun underneath the photosphere. With something like this, it just goes into your diagonal, you'll be able to see the photosphere, which along with some prominences that are flaring off the edge of the sun, you'll still be able to see the sunspots along with some surface detail of the sun. Now, depending on the size of your aperture, you will need some type of a front energy reducing filter. In this instance, on my diagonal here, I have a beta hydrogen alpha blocking filter to help keep any excess heat off of this Daystar Quark and to protect the etalon, which is what's doing the heavy lifting and reducing out and rejecting all the other bandwidths of light except for the hydrogen alpha. But as you can see, with a setup like this, you would have to take your eyepiece or camera off of the quark, take the quark off, remove this front energy reducing filter, put it all back together, and then you'd be set up for totality. So I would not recommend a dual purpose setup if you're trying to visually or photograph the entirety of the eclipse from start to finish. If you have a second telescope that's compatible with the Daystar Quark, then you could use that just dedicated for the phases leading up to totality and after totality. Tip number 2, don't feel like it's too late to plan an eclipse trip. In 2017, I made the last minute decision about a week and a half out to go to a totality location and view the eclipse. Now, yes, it was challenging that short minute trying to plan and find a location, but something to keep in mind is, as long as there's no clouds and you're in the path, then you can view the eclipse. You don't have to worry if you're in a city where there's normally light pollution at night, because this is a daytime event. So even if you make a last spur of the minute decision the day of to drive to a location to get to that totality zone, as long as you make it there, then you'll be able to view the eclipse as long as it's clear. Tip number 3, if you are planning on visiting a location to view the total eclipse, make sure that your location that you've chosen is actually in the path of totality. Nothing would be more heartbreaking than setting up at your location and doing that final countdown to totality just to find out you've missed it by a couple miles. Tip number 4, make sure you practice. When I first started doing solar observing and imaging, I was unaware how difficult it would be to actually find the sun. It's that big, blindingly bright blob in the sky. But once you have a white light filter on the front of your telescope, or something like a Daystar Quark, unless you're in the field of view, unless the sun is in the field of view, everything is completely pitch black. So make sure you take time to practice leading up to the eclipse. So with that, while you're practicing, make a checklist of all the equipment that you're going to need, whether it be for astrophotography or visual use. That way, whenever you prepare to set up or travel, you have a nice quick checklist that you can make sure that you're not going to leave any of your equipment behind. Tip number 5, it's eclipse day, you're all set up, you're ready to go, just counting down till totality. Well, make sure you also listen for how the wildlife responds during totality. Wildlife will start to go to bed and settle down for the evening, thinking that the sun has set. Don't just focus on the total eclipse, make sure you look for planets and other stars, because it will dim down enough where you will be able to see other celestial items in the sky. Feel the temperature difference. I remember during the 2017 eclipse, when I was in Kentucky, it was right around 100 degrees. The temperature dropped drastically, and it was a bearable temperature. It's amazing how much heat the sun is outputting, and just it being blocked momentarily, how quickly the temperature will drop. Tip number 6, use an eclipse timer app, such as this one found at solareclipsetimer.com. Now, this isn't a paid sponsorship or anything, this is just an app that I plan on using for the upcoming eclipse myself. This is available on both Android and Apple devices. With this, It will use your GPS coordinates to set and calibrate the application to your exact location. It'll help you calculate your contact times along with giving you eclipse announcements, such as looking for shadow bands and when to safely remove and install your solar filters, or when you can remove your solar glasses safely to view totality if you are in the path of totality. It's reasonably priced and definitely something I would highly recommend using. You can download it, try it out, you can hear all the announcements, see if it's something that you would like to try whenever you view the eclipse. Tip number 7, plan to extend your stay. Now, what do I mean by that? Don't try to leave right after totality or after the eclipse is over. I made this mistake in 2017. While I did wait until the entire event was over, many people did leave right after totality. However, that 8-hour drive home ended up taking me closer to 18 hours. Now, I think many of you who have had that experience in 2017, you may have already planned on extending your stay. Now, I plan to extend several days just in case. Now, several days might not be necessary. I'd imagine that most of the traffic will have been cleared up within 24 hours, but it's something to keep in mind, especially if you're just taking a day or two off for work and you have to be back the next day after the eclipse. Make sure to plan for that extended travel time, because depending on how far you're going, you may be sitting in gridlock traffic for hours. Tip number 8, thinking that you need a ton of fancy equipment to enjoy and get the most out of a total eclipse. Well, you don't. I've seen many beautiful images of a total eclipse, and they are gorgeous. However, nothing beats being able to see it with your naked eye. The velvety blackness and the purest white that you've ever seen coming from the sun's corona is something that you'll want to take in. If you just have a SLR with a 200, 300 millimeter focal length lens and a solar filter for leading up to and after totality, you'll be able to get some great pictures. Now, many of you, I'm sure, are going to be taking 1, 2, if not 3 or more telescopes or cameras to photograph this, or several telescopes to get a close-up view of the total eclipse. So if you do have that equipment, that's great. Use it, but don't think that you need to rush out and get that equipment to enjoy the eclipse. Tip number 9, make sure to pack or take along all the other things. The things that aren't necessarily astronomy related. You're going to be out enjoying the eclipse for several hours. Make sure to take some beverages in a cooler, some snacks, maybe even pack a lunch. Make sure to have a little table or something where you can set up your equipment on so you're not fumbling around setting things on the ground. Treat it as if you're going camping, but for a shorter period of time. Make this a memorable and enjoyable experience for everyone that you're with. Tip number 10. Now, this is probably my second most important tip that I can give you. And that is, make sure that you visually experience and enjoy the eclipse. If you're having problems with your equipment, trying to switch everything over to get ready for totality, don't miss those couple minutes of totality fumbling around with your gear. As heartbreaking as it would be to not capture a great photo of the eclipse, being able to miss out on it also would be devastating. So keep that in mind. Whenever I went down to Kentucky to view the 2017 eclipse, I had made my mind up that I had a plan, I've practiced. If there is some type of problems, I'm not going to focus on fixing those problems during the couple minutes of totality. I was just going to enjoy the experience. So I'm here with my wife, Kristen, and she has a bonus tip for everyone.
So my bonus tip is to take a picture of a before and during solar eclipse of your surroundings. So your landscape, your yard, if you're in a parking lot, just because nobody can really put into words what the difference is between like when you see your surroundings before and while the eclipse is taking place with totality. So that is something that I wish that we had done when we were on our Kentucky trip back in 2017. is I wish I would have taken a picture of what the before and during looked like just in the yard.
They even try to take a panoramic photo because during totality you'll get that 360-degree sunset that you'll only ever be able to see during an eclipse. So I'm here with Dave from Astronaut. Make sure to check out his channel. He's a new YouTuber here. Make sure to check him out. He's got another bonus tip for everyone.
So if you're out there and you have your gear set up and you've been doing some night imaging and you have a guide scope, don't forget to put the cover on before you point that thing at the sun the next day, or you might be cooking your guide camera.
Thank you, Dave.
Ask me how I know.
How do you know?
You know, I saw somebody do it in my front yard and then I realized it was me.
Well, don't make that mistake. And I'll try to remember to do that because I do plan on setting up the night before to make sure that I'm polar aligned, just to make my life a little bit easier, but I'll have to definitely keep that tip in mind. Make sure to give this video a like and consider subscribing because it really does help this channel grow and helps encourage me to continue making videos like this.